So here we are again. The last video I did on meditation, I thought it was going to be the last. It was a means of getting to a point where the things I've talked about were usable. And it went along with the two videos before that had to do with visualization in terms of creating your life. But I find that I just can't get away without talking a little bit more about the philosophy involved with this. When you visualize, you are instructing that portion of you that's your mind's eye to focus on something. And what this brings up in Hermetic philosophy, that wonderful little book, The Kybalion, that I told you about, is the idea of gender. That gender is the engine that kind of runs everything. By that I mean, the Kybalion refers to, there are two parts to everything, masculine and feminine. The masculine part of your mind being that portion which is directing the visualization, and your mind's eye is that portion which is creating the visualization. And that everything is pretty much created that way. And it's the direction from one to the other, and again I talked about direction, that creates the visualization and therefore creates what you want to have happen. So this component of duality is present in everything. And we can see it down to the smallest particles, atoms, which are full of protons, which are positive, electrons, which are negative. And that's what we kind of refer to it in, is both a mixture of positive and negative. And it is the interaction between those two that causes everything to happen. It's really the electrons, the amount of electrons present in an atom, that determines what that atom is going to be. Is it going to be hydrogen, which is simply one proton, one electron, or is it going to be something else? And we have to talk about the duality of what exists within people, because I think that's very, very important. Again, we could go back to the mind and talk about the conscious mind that's thinking, and the part that's your mind's eye. And again, you're directing your mind's eye to do certain things. For example, picking up. I've stated this on the video on psychic ability, that you're directing your consciousness. I want to tune into such and such a person, and then you just watch what comes across your mind's eye. And it's the interconnectedness of everything that makes that type of thing possible. But there are other dualities that exist within us. There are other aspects of us that are both positive and negative. And being able to realize this is a very difficult thing. By that I mean, each one of us has a pretty good opinion of ourselves. I remember reading a book called Breaking Through Spiritual Materialism by a Buddhist whose last name I remember is Trungpa. And what that book was about was kind of simple. I'm overstating it a little bit in terms of simplicity. But the human mind can rationalize anything. And why that's important to realize is that we pass ourselves off as being good all the time. And if we were good all the time, we wouldn't have to be here. So when we look at one another and we look at ourselves, what do we see? In another person, if we see things that are similar to what we believe, we just think they're absolutely terrific. If we see things that are the opposite to what we believe, we have something less than positive to think about as far as that person is concerned. And yet we don't really understand what led that person to be the way that they are. And it's even more difficult in ourselves because we fool ourselves. Somebody does something wrong to you, and you say, well, I'm going to get this, I'm going to do this back to them because I'm justified in doing that because that person did something wrong and I'm justified. And then we go back to the old saying of two wrongs don't make a right. Now, not to oversimplify it again, but there exists within all of us the ability to go either way. The ability to be either very positive or to be very negative. There is a story that I heard recently. It's about a old Cherokee man who is talking to his grandson and tells his grandson that in each person there are two wolves who are doing battle. And one wolf is anger and jealousy and hatred and envy and all the things that are negative. And the other wolf is love and compassion and charity and goodness. And the little boy says to his grandfather, which wolf wins the battle? And he looks at the boy and says, the one that you feed. It is so difficult to look at ourselves and to say, this is where I fouled up in this particular arena of my life, this particular action between myself and other people, or this particular action that is in relation to the standards that I've set up for my life in terms of being positive and being good. It is so difficult to look at ourselves and to say, boy, in this particular instance, I really fouled up. But if you can begin to do that, you begin to starve that negative wolf. You begin to create vibrations. And we've talked about vibrations all through this that are more and more positive, more and more positive, more and more positive as you continue to see these things and to change the way that you do things. And again, it's an extremely hard thing to do because of that very positive opinion that we have of ourselves. But it is, again, I think if I haven't mentioned it, I'll mention it now, but I think I have. Spiritual growth comes from within. Spiritual growth doesn't come from the outside where other people have an effect on you. You have to grow from the inside out. I remember years ago when I was growing up and I had just gotten out of college, talking to a priest about the fact that while I was in college, they did away with the necessity of not eating meat on Friday as a Catholic. And I said to the priest, really not realizing what I was saying, and what I realize now is I kind of was on the right track. Wouldn't it be so much better for that person, Father, to give up the meat willingly than to say, if you eat meat on Friday, it's a sin and you're going to pay for it, you're going to be punished for it? Doesn't it make sense to do that for that reason, because you want to sacrifice, because you believe it's the right thing to do? And doing things that you do them because they are the right thing to do. So first of all, it's very difficult to get to that point, but it's something that's achievable, and it's achievable a little bit at a time. Just like meditation, if we take just one small step at a time and stop doing this that's negative, and then stop doing this, and then catch ourselves trying to make ourselves better and better and realizing who we are, okay? Then we move to the point where we begin to grow, and because we're changing our vibrations, and because those vibrations have an effect on how we think, because remember, this is all cause and effect, like we talked about before, it becomes easier and easier. And it's a difficult, long, hard path, and it takes a long while to get there, but we have to work at it, and after all, that's the reason we're here. Nobody said it was going to be easy. Nobody said it was going to be something that was going to be able to be achieved in a short amount of time. But it's something that is achievable. It's the positive way to do it. And it's a time that brings us to grow and to understand who we are and understand those around us better. Because as difficult as it is for us, it is equally difficult for them. So we should feel some degree of compassion because we know what they're going through, and we become less judgmental about the way that we